Boom. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Chasing Edges podcast. I got my guy B Scar on here. I'm hype. Brennan Scarlett. We played together in Houston. Shout out to Scarlett Creative, his media company. They produced the boy. Massive shout out to Caroline Hall. She's been making the graphics for the pod, and they got some magic going on themselves. But Scar, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Peters.
Nah, dude, I'm pumped, man. Obviously, like we have these conversations on and off throughout the years, and then me and Scar have gone international as well. Boys took a trip to Brazil. But one of my favorite humans to talk to. He's like, obviously, you're incredibly balanced in kind of how you approach life, and I like how you grow not only in the sport but outside of the sport. And I've seen you battle a bunch of adversities and those kind of things, and we'll get into all that. But the first question I ask everybody, man, like, what are you curious about right now? Where are you learning? Where are you chasing edges?
My curiosities right now, we're just fresh into the off season right now. So about a couple weeks removed from the high intensity training and the, super structured schedule of just daily life in the NFL. So right now, just kind of leaning into some of my projects off the field, creatively, and, whether that's the Scarlett Creative or, the foundation with Big Yard, kind of investments. It's just basically all of these things, right, that I have going. And I'm starting to really pay attention to the power of manifestation, the power of like my thoughts, the power of actually having structure in the schedule, even though I'm having some off time right now, trying to figure out what maximizes my productivity and my potential, basically, as just capacity to do work, which I pride myself on the ability to do a lot, right? But now, like, how do I do a lot of things really well, So that's, just kind of generally like paying attention to those things.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's an endless pursuit in and of itself, just because obviously, like I was in that I've been in that bucket for 2 years now outside of sport. And I'm just learning how to master it and learning how to categorize it and get into flow in this state, and then change hats and then get into business or keep up my training or try some new type of training. You said you focused on like your thoughts and the manifestation. Like, what's worked for you? What have you tried? Like, can you articulate that at all?
Yeah, so I've really gotten into I started meditating pretty consistently the last few weeks of the season. I had an MCL, grade 2 MCL, like week 11 or 12. Ended up missing 4 games, was out for 5 weeks, and so I kind of had some time to do some different things. And I started meditating every morning. Just as soon as I woke up, brushed my teeth, got going, sit out on the balcony, like put my phone inside. I didn't have a timer. I didn't have like a guided
app or anything. Yeah.
I wasn't on Headspace or anything. Just like, let me just be outside, sit, and be with my thoughts until like it felt like a good time to stop.
Yeah,
like really just taking my time with that and feeling, as my mind would drift and go to, think about a problem from yesterday or a problem in 5 years, but then being able to like bring it right back, to my breath. And the power of that, I started to kind of feel like how it translated to real life and just everything.
Yeah. Anything. So I love meditation. I've dabbled in a lot of different, we'll call it protocols. I'm locked in on the protocol word, but like I've gone through a bunch of different types of meditation. I've done sound baths, I've done silent meditation, music meditation, breathing meditation. There's a technique called spotlight that I think is dynamite too, because I honestly nobody can really tell you how to meditate. Like, it is a personal thing. But I kind of like, same as I do training, like I steal different methods and I test them and I merge them and I kind of find what works for me. But before we get into that stuff, when you finished your meditation, was it like a noticeable feel better? Was it a peace, a calmness? Like what was the benefit of meditation for you?
The best benefit for me is just grounding me in the morning. Like I felt like even though it was only sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10, sometimes 15, I felt like I had those moments to myself. And then I was like, I was ready to take on the rest of the day, and then I felt good about, diving straight into, just getting my coffee and heading out the door to go train, or like diving into emails, or like a bunch of stuff that, is kind of outside my own mental space. Like I gave myself that time, and I felt like I was just more productive through days, had more energy, was more positive, like, going into the building, at the facility in Miami, being able to kind of, just bring the right energy, the right positive energy in the building, whether it was when I was, rehabbing and hurt, or when I came back towards the end of the season, just trying to be that kind of having a contagious energy to, keep winning. And I felt like I was more apt to do that after a meditation time.
Yeah, no doubt, dude. It's just like it's peace. Like you kind of cut out time for peace. And then I like it for me, it does the same thing. It bleeds into the day. Obviously if I'm waking up and training like super early, like I don't have time to cut that in, but like I went through a phase where I'd wake up and I cut out 15 minutes, like, and I dabbled with hour-long meditations as well. And just like the level of, I don't even know how to describe it. It was like just this like level of peace is like a down regulation. Cause like, if I'm getting up and I'm looking at my phone, like the days I get up and look at my phone, I'm on my phone more. It's like just the momentum's rolling in a different direction. It's intentional. It's like not mindless. Like it's mindless to walk. Like, yeah, I'll check my texts or the missed calls or the Instagrams or whatever it is. But like, cause like the cool thing I did this last year is like I journaled for the majority of the year. And so I look back at my good days, cause most of the time I journal like really quick in the morning and like pretty quick at night, but I would like prep for the day and I reviewed the day. And my best days were days where like I had good momentum right from the start in the morning. So like now I kind of have I have a shorter condensed version of that now, but it's just something that I think that was conscious for me, that like you can't measure something you don't track. So now I have a version of tracking it, and it's dude, it's like it was night and day, the days where I was intentional and I wasn't. But that's what I get out of meditation and like intentional, or like a breath practice too. Like even though it's a breath practice, it serves as a form of meditation for me. But yeah, dude, I just think a lot of people look at it as like woo woo, and really it's just like, honestly, it's like an antidote to stimulation that everybody's overstimulated. And I just think everybody should at least like flirt with it, experiment, try it. So like, I'm honestly, I mean, I know you're curious as fuck. So like it excites me that you vibe with that, and you always got that kind of what's a good way to say it? What's the, not Tai Chi, like what's the feng shui to you? Like with
Feng shui. I like
yeah,
feng shui.
you're a feng shui guy, whether it's interior design or just the vibe.
Yeah, I'm curious, man. I like to experiment, like with physically, mentally, emotionally, and like to just kind of, as I try different things, see kind of what the output is. And I thought, with meditation, it's been, interesting. Number one, it's just so hard to stay consistent. That's my biggest thing. Hard to stay consistent. But in my best days or my best weeks, when I am, it's interesting to track and see just certain meditations feel different than other meditations, right? One day, super easy to be peaceful and just like my mind can, stay pretty consistent, pretty constant. Then other days, it's a roller coaster, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. It's only been 2 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm ready to be done. But just like kind of like feeling that, and like kind of just feeling the ebbs and flows of every day of life. It's just it's interesting. I think to your point, I think measuring that and like, seeing if I can start finding patterns of, I feel like this at certain parts of, whatever. If there's something going on, this is why I'm having these mental or emotional roller coasters in my meditations. But also found that like being able to find that peace, like when your eyes are closed and just, your mind's going crazy, but then being able to focus on your breath and come back to that. It's like, that's a space you can reach anytime. That's always available to you, right? Whether you're on the field, whether you're, need to take a break in a business meeting, during training, you're training hard and you're hurting, you close your eyes for a second, you get that space of peace. And that's like an intentional, purposeful thing that you can do, which is just amazing to me.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a skill. And like that, like I've noticed that too, where like I do like this spotlight technique. I like whether music's on or off and those kind of things. Like the spotlight, you just like, I spotlight my breath. So now I follow my breath in and out, whatever. Now I spotlight, then I switch and spotlight sound. So now I switch to auditory and I meditate on my, like, so it's just a focus. It's like, can I get lost? Can I have this ability to control and lock into that? Then can I switch to feel? Like, can I feel the back of my hands, this finger, that finger, this foot, whatever? And then I switch back and forth, and it just constantly new presence, new presence, new presence. And then now my ability to focus when again the shit hits the fan, I can control this. Like, oh, I don't have to hear the craziness going on. I can lock in, or like I can always return to my breath. Those things, like, yeah, it's just a cool skill set that I don't think a lot of people dabble into. But yeah, like it's just the curiosity to try it and the courage to try it and get lost in it. I think it also, like, honestly, it's like a form of therapy for me too, where I like the Naval Ravikant's of the world. I say his name all the time, but so I did his was 60 days. I had 30 days of an hour-long meditation, and it was crazy, like how upset I got in my head with how like stir crazy I got, like how I couldn't basically like I thought initially meditation was like clearing your mind of thought, and then I got into Buddhism, and like thoughts are clouds in the sky. They're not real things unless you hold on to them. So you can just watch, your thoughts can come and go. Your brain's this problem generating machine that you just like let the problems come, let the words come, let the feelings and thoughts come, and just let them go. And so the more I sorted through it, and then I heard this, or like this is before I got into the Naval thing, but he treats like an inbox, and like it's your own version of therapy, where like basically like you have all your problems stacked up vertically on top of you and inside your head. And eventually, if you sit with yourself long enough and the same problem keeps coming up, you're probably going to attempt to solve it more likely, but you have to constantly check in and have that morning check-in or that meditative check-in. And eventually the goal is to get closest to zero in your inbox. And then now all your problems are in this close proximity, like a few days ahead, a few days behind. And like, eventually you solve your traumas. And like a lot of people can't sit like with themselves in a room alone for a while because like trauma shows up, or like fears and those things. So anyways, I just like that approach is something to try. But the spotlight technique and then breath paired with music where you just get lost in it, I think is dope too. It's like, honestly, you can like get highs with the oxygen and stuff too, but I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. But yeah, me and my rabbit holes. But no, but so obviously like another big thing, one thing like I've always admired about you is like how you battle adversity. Like you've been through an injury gauntlet, and like it's frustrating, and it's all because I know you do a lot to take care of your body, and I've seen you train, I've seen your trainer out in Portland, all those things. I know you're doing the right things. But can go through the list of injuries real quick. You got like a laundry list, you know, like how many surgeries have you had?
Man, I'm like probably upwards of 14 at this point. My first surgery was sophomore year in high school. I had a knee sophomore year. I had another knee junior year. I had a collarbone senior year. Freshman year of college, had one of the surgeries from my sophomore year of high school went bad, so I had to have another knee that year. Sophomore year of college, had a hand. Junior year of college, that hand was infected, so I couldn't play. Senior year of college at Cal, had an ACL. Went to Stanford, played a healthy year, which then led into coming to Houston. And my first year, I had a couple of hammies my first year, but starting at Stanford, like my training just approach was forcibly changed. Started to focus more on like my mobility and movement, and honestly have have remained, obviously not totally healthy during the league, but those years of like season-ending injuries that I went through, basically like 7 consecutive years from my high school and college days of, starting the season and then basically having a season-ending injury. Those haven't shown up as much, haven't shown up at all. since I've been in the league.
Have you found any like recovery methods that like is like your go-to now? Like when obviously there's different methods for different types of injuries, but anything that you favor like that's worked really well for you?
I think like recovery, and I view recovery and training kind of all in, I bucket that all into one. And so, I attribute a lot of, my thought process now to, my trainer / performance coach, Keith D'Amelio, out here, who I work with. And, from like the warm up that can sometimes go from 45 to, an hour, maybe, 75, 90 minutes. It could be a long warm up.
Like between like stretching, ankle mobility, trigger pointing, rolling, like all those things, correct? Activation.
Yeah. We're looking at, the shoulder cars, the ankle cars. It's, just basically extending the range of motion at all your joints, right? So, wrist, elbow, shoulders, hips, ankles, all those things that can be basically pushing those ranges of movement. And I mean, we're dripping sweat by the end of that warm up, whether it's 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. And it's actually part of the workout. So that's kind of the thought process is like, don't just treat a warm up as like, stretch the hammies, do a couple twists and call it good and get into the training session. Like it's actually all part of the training session. And if you do that consistently, every day for 6 days a week, and you look at all of your off season, right? What that prepares you to then be able to do going into, a training camp, if that's also partnered along with strategic and structured training on top of these warmups, right? And they're all grouped together, then you're looking at for me, the best, it's like it's the best prehab / just like recovery for your body that you can possibly do, in my mind. I think that your training in your off season and then training through the season as well, like getting stronger through the season versus, a lot of guys get weaker, and that being like a conscious thought that you're not, you don't train for training camp. You actually, you're training through training camp and actually through the season as you're training for like, the last game, and hopefully that's the Super Bowl. But, if you're thinking that way, then you're building, intelligently, right? Like, there's structure and strategy to it, but you're building to the final peak.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of that. Like, I think the concept of like peaking in training camp isn't like, I think it's understandable, the logic, but I think the true mastery are the guys that can, again, they can be incredibly prepared for training camp, but they're still on that steady incline forward. And I'd say probably like a third of guys come in with that mindset in the NFL locker room. And then I've seen, obviously, like we've had similar strength coaches in Houston, but different strength coaches approach it differently too. Like some guys don't try and hurt people, but other guys like forcibly try and peak like week 4, like week 3, and like it like carried on through the end of the season. But like that's all based on like again, like you're kind of handcuffed like when you get into a team on your training methodologies and things like that to some extent. But did you carry those extended warm-ups into the NFL? Because obviously like usually you get time before practice, but then like when you get out there, you do like the team's 15-minute warm-up and you go.
Yeah, no, I'll do them as part of my training regimen. So, the last couple of years have been able to take the training regimen and bring it through the season. And so basically like we'll start in March, we'll start our training and Keith has basically a good idea or kind of general roadmap of like where we want to end up in, July. So like we're starting here and this is the baseline of our exercises and, the training regimen. And then, this is where we want to get to. And then like, slowly building us there, right? And building up, over the course of say a month, like our 4-week kind of blocks of training, right? And by week 3, peaking, week 4, kind of coming down, take a cushion, and then building out another block of 4 weeks where you do the same thing and change up the movements change up the exercises, and then just go a little bit higher, right, than that first block of 4 weeks. So it's a slow kind of gradual get to a point where you get to training camp. And then you got to adjust a little bit because obviously now we have different strains on our bodies, you know, the intensity of, you know, playing and having the practice, but then being able to kind of take that same kind of structure, right, of the, you know, the warm up of the 4 week blocks, take that through training camp, and then also kind of take it through the season, basically viewing the season as, you know, before this year, like four quarters of the season, right? Now it's like 4 quarters plus 1 game, and building out the training regimens through each block and being kind of tactful about, you know, what we're doing. And, you know, we've also kind of looped in, like, you know, I have my therapist, Charlie Weingroff, who I work with. You know, luckily he's based in Miami. And so work with him once a week, and anything that's going on, you know, in my body, he's in constant communication with Keith. So we're building out exercises or tailoring exercises for things, you know, that are coming up from little bumps and bruises or, you know, things that aren't feeling right. And then it's also working the other way too. You know, I let Charlie know what's going on. He treats, and then he gives exercises to build in to Keith. And so it all kind of creates this ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the best pros have that, like, particularly if you have like leverage and you're in a city for a long time, like obviously you get your guys. But like just to have that constant check-in and the connection to the off season, to the end season, it's not just like you go see a Dr. Ho, like he's kind of like a cure-all, like he does spot treatment, but it's not like this cohesive unit that works off season through the season. I like that a lot. And I think I really think the best players have like those massive resources around them all the time. And especially the big high dollar guys, like they'll fly guys in, like they'll have this constant ecosystem where it's built to succeed. But I think that's where, like, obviously you invest a lot of money in your body, and you obviously intentional about who you're around. And obviously I've seen you train out in Portland with the boys, and one of your dogs is Ndamukong Suh, has been doing it for a long time. And I, like, when I was training in the off seasons, like I always tried to be around guys that have been pros and guys that have done it for a long time, the Cushings, the Adrian Petersons, people like that. JJ, like I trained with him at the Texans facility and those kind of things. But what did you pick up from him as a training partner, like as his approach or like wisdom, those kind of things? I know you guys kind of vibe off the field too, but what have you picked up from him as a training partner?
Yeah, I mean, I was super lucky to, you know, be able to meet Ndamukong really early on in my career. And we're both from Portland, Oregon, and have some, you know, mutual friends and, you know, just kind of people in the community who, you know, we both know, but we never met coming up. You know, he's a little bit older than me. He actually met with my dad, like a couple years before we actually met, because he was doing some real estate stuff and had a meeting with my dad and like gave my dad advice to give to me.
Hell yeah.
About, you know, going into the league. And his advice was like, make sure he makes the team. Don't worry about making the team. And so then went into my season in 16, my rookie year, and finished up and got back here to Portland in 17, and was going to a physical therapy clinic around here, just getting some body work. And he happened to be in the same clinic at the same time. And I, you know, went up, just kind of start chopping it up. Told him he knows my dad, and then he kind of made the connection, and he invited me to come train the next morning, which I think at that time we were training at like 7, like start time was 7 o'clock. Since then, it like every year it gets either 15 or 30 minutes earlier. So now like we're at 6 o'clock. And I think it's just because as he's gotten older, he just you know, he doesn't have as many night activities.
Yeah.
You know? So now he's a dad of twins, you know, he's married and everything. So he can get up early, you know, the 6 a.m. So, you know, I think I've learned a lot from him, from like his structure. Every morning we're up at 6 o'clock, you know, wake up at 5:30, try to get in there, probably 5:15, get in there by like 5:45, 5:50-ish, roll out, and then start officially start the warm up at 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And even when we've traveled, you know, when he'll have a business meeting or something, he'll take the group. He's taking the group before, you know, on the jet, but he'll bring Keith too, right? And you know, if there's a meeting at, you know, 8:00, and then we're going to go and get that training. We're going to have that training session in at 5:30 up in Montreal, Canada, and we're going to find a gym. We're going to have it all structured out, and just to kind of learn and see that, right? And football and training is the highest priority, right? From just kind of like, as you look at just the business of things. And then if you take care of that and have the highest structure for that, right? And you're intentional about taking care of that with the best that you possibly can, then it frees you up for everything else, right? So start at 6 and we're done by 8. Start at 6, we're done by 8:30. You literally have the rest of the day for, you know, whether it's real estate or whether it's, you know, investing, or whether it's, you know, decorating the house or whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It just like the ability then to start just making gains on people, you know what I mean? You're just like not only on the field, but everything you're doing off the field too. You're just like those hours that you're gaining in the morning is, you know, those are compounding over the course of a week, months, years. Like you're gaining, you know, months on, if you look at it as a competition, everybody else is trying to do what you're trying to do.
No, I love that, because like I found that, like, I found that peace in the morning where obviously like I do the 4 a.m. stuff like 3-4 days a week, and like I'm done training by 6:15. So like, and nobody touches me before 8:30, 9:00 in the morning. So I have these like 2-3 hour period that's just like, that's mine. Like nobody, like I can read, I can journal, I can study, I can like go have coffee, whatever it ends up being. Like it's a level of peace. But like now, if you understand, like it really just gives you more life. And then obviously that's where like I admire your ability to grow outside of the sport. Like I think a lot of guys, like they spend so much time on plan A that they never like develop a plan B. And then like one of my buddies, Will Compton, who's been on the podcast as well, he developed this podcast on top of football, and that identity outside of football, like not making this football identity your entire being. And like the NFL thing being your entire life, it gave him a lot of peace and balance in life, to not only like succeed on the football field, but like, it takes some of the pressure off your shoulders, knowing that like this isn't life or death. Like, yeah, you want to take that mindset and be highly competitive and be the best and X, Y, and Z. But I think there's something massive to say about like building that identity and like the business and the money flow and all those things outside of sport. And I think you've done that really well. But so like, when did you start to develop that? And then how has it grown since then? Like what feeds you off the field?
That started for me really honestly when the injuries started, like back in high school. You know, I was always you know, I was always good in the classroom. I had tons of support from, you know, parents, and, you know, went to private school and had great teachers. And, you know, so I was always kind of, you know, had that added element of like school. I was a schoolboy along with like balling, you know.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I always wanted to be a professional athlete. It didn't even matter. It didn't matter what sport. Could have been, you know, hoop, could have been swimming, could have been running track. Like, it didn't matter for me. I just wanted to keep playing, and I wanted to keep getting better and be the best that I could possibly be. And as soon as I got to high school and I started, my dad and I started watching the NFL Combine. And this is like, you know, at this point, I was still consider myself a basketball player. You know, I was still kind of growing. I could still play the 4, you know, at 6'3", you know, back then. It was before like big dudes started looking like they were like getting up to 7 feet. But my dad and I started watching the Combine, and I started seeing guys who were, you know, 6'2", 6'3", running up 4'8", you know, 4'7", you know, and I'm and they're weighing 250 pounds. But I'm, you know, a freshman in high school, 6'2", 245 pounds, running 4'8" myself. So at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, there's actually like no ceiling on what I can do on the football field. If I just look at the guys who are, best in class, about to reach the pinnacle of the sport, I can do that. And, tribute a lot to my dad, who just like always, raised me, my brother, my sister, all of us with like, just, you can do anything, that mindset. I remember vividly times where, we would say that we can't do something. And anytime we'd say that word can't, like, he would like stop on the road. If we're driving, he's stopping on the road. It's like, can't. We don't say that word.
Let's go.
And just like, I look back and just like how powerful that was, because for me, I never had any doubts that I was going to, be able to play in the NFL, or like when I was playing ball, like had never had doubts that I could do, anything. And I attribute a lot to that. And, I think some of those injuries early on, I've kind of taken those as blessings in disguise, because, I began to early on, as every young elite athlete, like, yeah, I'm a ball player. I play football. I play basketball. Like, this is me. Having that taken away so aggressively, like, and so immediately early on in my life, it was really a fact check. Like, it was like, oh, hold on. Like, I can't just be a football player, because this shit can end like that. Because like, then who am I if I don't have it? So then it was like, shit, okay. Like, I still got school. Luckily, I'm smart. Like, I got support. Like, I'm in a good school. Like, I'm gonna start competing in school. Let me start, writing. Let me try to get straight A's. And just that competitive edge took over in another realm. And I think, as the injuries continued, I always like fell back on school. And then, got to a point where like I was so good at school. And then when I'm playing, I'm so good at, I was good at both. And I could start to balance them both. And I start to realize like, okay, yeah, I got this capacity to like be at Berkeley and be in the business school, or be at Stanford and be in the engineering school, and like also play a elite level ball. I could do that, and so I'm not just a football player. I'm not just, in the classroom. I'm actually like all of these things. And then like plays that mindset into the NFL and making like solid amount of money, like that mindset. Then, it took some time, but that grew to like, okay, I could play elite ball, but I can also have, I can also build this foundation, and I can also have this real estate company, and I can also have these investments, as long as and I'm actually all of these things.
Yeah, for sure.
Simultaneously, because going back to kind of bringing it full circle, if I have it structured out, and I have that discipline to do everything, I can actually excel. And Brennan Scarlett can wear a ton of hats, outside of the game, and also in the game, and be elite at all of them.
Yeah, I think that's super honestly, it's a superpower, but it's like it takes a lot of discomfort. Obviously, it may have been like triggered by some of the injuries and those kind of things, but like I don't think people are truly aware of their capability, especially like football players. Like, yeah, you have this name and this platform and those things, and some guys springboard off that, but it's always kind of hinged to that title, but they can still basically like evolve away from it. And that's where like I think the superpower of it all is that like efficient people in the world, like I've seen some incredibly efficient people that like they have 20 hats. Like they're on 5 boards. They're running this company. They're a dad of 7, like things like that. And like those people stand out in my mind. Like, how efficient of a human can I be? How productive can I be? Like, how elite can I be at 7 things? Like, never, like, obviously, like there's a priority system to it. Like right now, like training is that priority, but I knocked that out before 9 a.m. Same with you. So now like I have 7 hours in the day. Yeah, I could relax, and I could lay in bed, and I could maximally recover for plan A still. Like that's a way to do it too. But I think there's just so much more to life than just obviously football now. Like I've been in that hat where like I do everything the rest of the day to maximize football. And at the same, but like those boundaries and that mindset, honestly, I'd say they crippled me to some extent, because it it contained my learning. It contained, obviously it adds to this podcast, because like I learned a lot about how to take care of my body and edges and supplements and all those things. And I love that stuff, and that'll always be in my life. But like, there's so much more to the world besides sport. There's so much like more to my capability. And honestly, like the piece that comes from being able to make money outside of football, and the piece that comes from like, honestly, like enjoying like a bunch of hobbies outside of football, I think are all just balance out really like beautifully, like if you really look at like life. But like, I always like, I kind of gravitate towards like the Stoics and the Greeks and different aspects of the world. But like, they experience all these things in life where like the structure of their society was, you're a soldier, and then you go into the merchant industry, you're a businessman, and then like you use that wisdom and you go in, and then you're in politics, and then after politics, like you're a philosopher, teacher, whatever it ends up being. So they experience the whole spectrum of life. But like, we obviously, like, modern times have changed, but like, you have the ability now to experience that whole spectrum in this year. Like, you can be a warrior, you can be on the field, and then now you can obviously train to keep being that warrior, but now you can be like this businessman, you can meditate, you can fly, get into philosophy, those things. Like, I think maximization is just like, it truly is a superpower. And like, unless you have people around you and models and role models, and obviously you've had some of those in your life, but you've also blazed a trail in some of those worlds too. I just think that's a powerful, like, obviously your dad inspired some of that with like the I can do anything concept, and then like you took the curiosity and ran and mastered 2 masks first, and now like you have 6 masks, and then who knows, next year maybe you have 8, 10. Like, I know you got that podcast coming up with the NFLPA. I'm hyped to hear that, you and Brandon Copeland, those kind of things. But like, I just think I think people sell themselves short, and I look in hindsight, and I think there's so much time in the day that like one identity can't just completely mask you. So I guess a question there. You have younger guys in the locker room with the Dolphins right now. I know you're having these conversations with guys. Like how are you? What's your advice to guys that like young bucks that maybe they're draft pick, maybe they're not, but like, how do you shed some wisdom to them right now?
Yeah, I think I try to teach by example. First thing, like, I never try to force or impress too much of, you got like lean into what you're doing off the field, right? Like, I don't want to press too hard on those things. So I think, it's important for me to like, be a role model in the locker room, just by, displaying like the discipline of being in there at 5:30, every morning, right before the 8 o'clock squad meeting. I'm getting my workout in, like, as guys are trickling in, like, I've already finished my workout. Like, I'm sweating, eating breakfast, you know what I mean? And so like those type of things. And then, that kind of trickles into like just a conversation of, what are you doing? And then, like, oh, I actually have this, program regiment. This is how I approach ball. And then if that kind of trickles into the conversation of like off the field stuff, then just like sprinkle something, about what I'm doing or what I'm into, whether, just kind of explaining my own curiosities, maybe asking them a question like, if they're into crypto, or are you into Web3, or, what do you like to do off the field? Like, what are your hobbies or whatever? And then kind of, basically just kind of push that way, just kind of let them know that it's possible if you do want to do something else besides, when you go home, just playing after film or whatever, playing video games. Like, there's actually more that you can do. And I think that first off, I think these skills all like translate. I think, who you are in one place is actually who you are everywhere. And I know there's a quote like, the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything.
Yeah, one of my favorites. Yeah.
And I think that's so true. Like, the leadership qualities that, you learn, right? These skills that I learned in, putting on an event for the foundation, like, those are like directly translating to being in the building and talking to, my position room, or breaking down a meeting, right? Or, and it goes the other way too. Like I think a lot about, like, to your point earlier about the guys that I've learned from, right? The Ndamukong Suhs of the world, like the Brian Cushings of the world, like the Brian Peters of the world, the Shane Lecklers, like the JJ Watts, Whitney Merciless, like these dudes who had their own kind of approach to the game and like took what they do super like seriously and had like structure behind it. You know, they had like the energy behind it and their mindset, right? Like, you know, I remember coming into the league, the way that you approach special teams was like nothing that I'd ever seen before, experienced before, as far as like special teams. Like everybody comes into the league to play, you know, defense, right? Just like I never played a lick of special teams my whole life, but to see how much focus you put on that as being, you know, your role. And then Shane Leckler, like been punting for 45 years, you know, like, you know, he was passionate about kicking that ball, you know, and he could tell you every position what they're supposed to be doing, right? Like, I guess it's all the capacity of all these, you know, great humans that I see on the field. I think those are patterns of being just great on whatever you're trying to do, right? And the discipline and everything, the energy and the leadership and all of that it takes to be great on the field is also like what it takes to be great in anything else you're doing in life.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, I'm a massive fan of the way you do one thing, the way you do everything, because like I have this whole bit on the podcast now. It shows up like every other episode, but like you should master these masks. So I like, because like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything kind of conflicts with my concept of you shouldn't be the same person all day. Like you should but that's more like a categorize. Like you shouldn't, like Scar in business is not the same as Scar in the weight room. Like Scar in the field is not the same Scar that has to go home and be like a good boyfriend or whatever it ends up being. Like all those things, like but like that's where like the categorization of you going from training to going, like putting on these, we'll call them hats, I call them masks, like master this mask. But like the way you do everything is like it's a different concept. It's kind of like another level deeper. Like when you're in it, like you're learning, you're observing, like you're creating this product. What like same as like you created your media company, you created a brand, is the same way like your brand on the football field. My brand is like X amount of violence, this amount of mobility, this pass rush move, whatever it ends up being. Like that's your brand, or that's the way you do things. Like when I'm here, I'm all in, but I have this skill set. And I know what you're saying. When you're saying like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, but at the same time, I think there's layers to the shit. Like there's levels to the shit. And as you go deeper, I just think the focus on this mask of a football player and Brennan Scarlett becomes masterful. And like the same as like obviously I think what you do off the field is incredible too, but like and it's masterful in its own sense that like the levels to it just continue to grow deeper once you understand like that's a different hat. Right. That I think that makes sense. But like so now in this, well, I guess we'll call it this off the field hat. Obviously you've learned these skill sets and you've learned the passion for the game from football and those kind of things, and obviously you do in business as well. But how do you direct like your energy off the field in this hat? Like I know you do the real estate, I know you do the brand, but like when you're structuring your time outside of sport right now, even like structuring your identity, where do you put yourself? Like I don't think that's a great question, but like do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's basically like how do I optimize?
Yeah, how are you growing like your business mind right now? Like how are you growing your brand, those kind of things?
Yeah. I'm studying a lot. I'm reading as much as I possibly can. You know, right now I'm reading the Will Smith book that he wrote with Mark Manson.
Nice. I haven't read it yet. I love both those guys though.
Bro, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Give me some juice. How deep are you into it?
I'm towards the end, man. I probably got like 50 more pages, maybe.
All right. Top 3 takeaways. Feed me.
Top 3 takeaways. I think number one, the power of manifestation. Like Will Smith had one goal, and that was to be the biggest movie star in the world.
Let's go.
And, you know, from basically like Bad Boys in Bad Boys 2, and like he went Pursuit of Happiness, and this is all out of chronological order, but he went Hancock, he went Shark Tale, he went, I'm missing a ton, but basically a bunch of like, he went #1 for like in the box office for a consecutive number of years. And he talks about, you know, how it wasn't just him, it was also the people who surrounded him, his family, his staff, like his boys who were all kind of there, like when they were shooting the Ali movie, and basically like approached the movie as a fight camp, and basically took that that mode of creation, that fight camp mindset, and then took that throughout the rest of his movies, and talks about like the discipline that he had. I just read a piece of, he had his son Trey, who was playing ball at Oaks Christian down in Southern California in LA. And Jaden was making The Karate Kid with Jackie Chan in Japan. And for 3 months, or for the whole football season, Jaden and Will flew back to Trey's game on Friday, watched the game, then flew back to Japan on Saturday. With the time change, somehow it worked. But he talks a lot about like the discipline that he had, basically just, you know, what the stuff that he was able to do basically pushed him to be #1. I think that was, I think the biggest takeaway is just kind of the manifestation and the thoughts, and then also like his words, his actions, ability to do so much, I think is,
that's dynamite. I think, cause that like, I think manifestation shows up in a bunch of ways. Obviously if you're manifesting something, if you're focusing on something, if you're putting your time, energy, effort there, like you're developing your own compound interest, which obviously like business hat Scar knows the power of compound interest. But like, I think just like people lack the patience sometimes to like let the compound interest grow enough to allow time to do its job and make you successful at that thing. Like it's law of 10,000 hours. It's a lot of things rolled into one. But I think that I just think it's so simple that people overlook it, and like the distractions and like the Netflixes and the things that like pull people away from what would truly grow them, what would truly make their life fucking magic. They get away from it too quick. And I think the manifestation is just like if you're truly manifesting something, like you're like, that's your heart, soul, mind, time, energy, effort. It just shows up into this eventually a creation of whatever version of your art it is. Like if your art's football, if your art's a movie, being a movie star, like if your art's like this end form business, whatever ends up being, I think I just think people short sell that manifestation concept, because it's I don't think, again, like manifestation is just kind of like one of those woo woo words, like, oh, I want this thing and I can have this thing and it is what it is, but it's trash. Like they think it's like something with yoga, and it's not. It's like that's life. Like that's life rolled into one. Like if I like, and obviously me and you have spoken to some schools and stuff before, but like where you spend your time is where you see results. It's just now it's just a matter of time and patience, that like and consistency. And I think consistency is like what shows up too. But like that's just my little rant on why I think manifestation and really putting your time, energy, effort over time really yields like fucking art and masterpieces and success.
I think the patience piece is like is critical, right? I mean, like we think manifestation, it's like you have to have the belief that, you know, anything is possible, and you can, you know, Kevin Garnett, anything is possible.
Yeah.
You can do anything.
Yeah. But realistically, and I think that's why the human brain's so stupid powerful, is that you really can. Like granted, like I probably can't be president of the United States with like with my skeletons in the closet and stuff like that. But but
that might help you in the polls though, bro.
Yeah,
you're real, you're raw.
Yeah, but it depends. But but really, like if I chose right now to do real estate full time, like I think if I put enough time and manifestation into it, like I'll be very successful. And I don't know where people lose that. Because I have a lot of like buddies I've had some really cool like bonfire talks with where they're like, I'm gonna keep doing this. Like I know you fucking don't love logistics. I know you don't love fucking doing coding for a credit card company, like things like that, where like I'm like, what do you love doing? I view the world like, hey, let's pick something you love. Let's just think and visualize a life you want to live. And let's find a way to make money in that. And like, let's spend 2-3 years doing that. And then now you get 30 years of like growth and happiness towards something that like means something to you. Cause I think people can put meaning to everything. And I don't have a family or a wife or anything like that. And like some of that, like some people just like 9 to 5 is good. And cause like all their meaning and all their life is in their family and in their home life and those kind of things. But all that stuff just kind of, I don't know. I wrestle with that because I haven't experienced it, I guess.
I think the delayed gratification that it takes to reach a lofty goal, right, is tough. It's a tough pill for people to swallow. I think the opportunity cost of like the discipline that it's going to take to, go and reach that goal also deters people from getting started, right? And that opportunity cost being like the nights out that they might not be able to have, like, the vacation they might not be able to take because, they're not making as much money in the comfortable job that they're in right now to pursue this job. It might, maybe not pay them as much in the beginning. And, I'm not oblivious to the fact that like both of us are super fortunate to be able to, chase our wildest dreams.
Yeah.
Right. Because we can, continue to put food on the table and a roof over our head. But at the same time, like, I think to your point, there are changes that could be made in people's lives, but, they maybe, I'll say because I think we're all prone to this. We are a little hesitant to make those moves because we just know how much time it's going to take, how uncomfortable we might be. And I actually, we actually don't want to sacrifice our, comfort right now for that discomfort than for the, the blessings and the grand vision that we have 5 years down the line. Like that seems like a long time. I'm gonna just chill.
Yeah.
But like 5 years in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, right? You're grinding and then to like potentially live a more fulfilled and happy life, So I think for me, it's been because I'm a very big thinker. I have grand visions. I'm an idea man. I'm a visionary, and I've struggled with that, right? Like this thing that I'm about to go down, this thing that I want to create has to be perfect, and I want it to be perfect right now. But that's just not reality. When you start down a venture, when you start on a new project, when you start on a new career path, like shit's not going to be perfect right now. It's going to take time. And so like shifting perspective of like, I look at it as school. I look at life as like a continued like schooling. These are just projects. Like these are just different classes. Sometimes you pass on a project. Sometimes you do shitty, so what? Guess what? Like the beauty of life is that you can trash it, and you can move on to the next thing. And so it's like these projects don't have to be A++ right when you start them, but like the only way that they could potentially be A++ is if you start them. And so I think that shift of perspective for me has been huge. Like I am more willing to do anything because I know it doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you fail, you chalk it up, you learn what you're going to learn, and you turn to the other thing, reinvent yourself, do something else.
Yeah, I think, and again, like I love the word superpower right now, so I'm gonna keep saying it. But like that's a superpower. Like a massive problem is like you climb this mountain for so long in this job or whatever, and like you get to an office or a desk or whatever it is you're pursuing or amount of money, and like you don't want to go back down the mountain and start over and reinvent yourself and like lose all this equity that you've built up. But like really like the ability, but like also like that's such a learning. Like I love the school analogy. Like I'm stealing the fuck out of that. But like treating like life like a school, and like, again, like constantly learning and constantly adapting and constantly figuring this out. But like, you don't learn that unless you go down the fucking path. Like, so like, it's okay if I go 100,000 steps down the wrong path and I learn that it's not for me. Cool. Abort the path, like go to another path. Like I have this bit where, and I said it in my little solo podcast, like I take shots just to hear the gun go off sometimes. Like if I'm being a bump on a log, like I just want to hear the fucking gun go off, like so I can go and do something, and I can go be uncomfortable again. And like the discomfort, and where I know I'm agitated and I'm learning, I know I'm doing something right. Like it's a trigger for me now. And but it's I think it is a meaningful cause to go down the wrong road and learn it's not for you, and then come back, start over, and find something that you're passionate about. Because I've to some extent I've done that a bunch. Like I dabbled in real estate when I got out of football, and like I realized like, yeah, like it makes logical sense, but like I have zero passion for it. So now I shifted like my financial efforts into investments, and learning where can I get the max return, like short term, long term, and ever. And like, and I also love like what you said in general, because it's a big Naval bit too, where like everything in life is a choice. Basically short term pleasure, long term deferment, and like all the like, and that's compound interest, long term deferment, and those kind of concepts. And I kind of geek out on this because it's I've done like some deep thinking on the concept, and like it's the complete inverse of what we're primarily wired for. So because like primally, like obviously this is regressing back to, we'll call it caveman era just for ease of use, but in the caveman era, like survival is the only priority. So everything in our physiology says short-term deferment for survival. Like it's the next meal, it's the next shelter, it's all these things in the short term. So our physiology feeds short-term deferment. And like that's my own hypothesis on why I think America is incredibly unhealthy and all these other things, but I'm not going to go down that road. But because everything in our physiology says like enjoy the couch, because like that's short-term gratification, that's pleasure. And basically like in the primal days, like when we got this, like on the very, very rare occasion as a animal in the wild with no food, Wi-Fi, shelter, all these things, DoorDash, on the very rare occasion we had food, water, shelter, like all these things, that our physiology says like, okay, save up energy for the next hunt, the next shelter build, the next cold front, whatever it ends up being. So like when we sit on the couch with all these boxes checked, food, water, shelter, tribe, all these things, like we're wired, physiologically wired to enjoy that. So like I think it's, people don't understand that like we are fighting our fucking DNA to get off the couch every time. And but like now you get into the power of consistency and habit, where it's like when you make these psychological decisions to get off the couch, and eventually you stack enough habits and you become this efficient human that we talked about earlier in the podcast, like it's freaking incredible what you can do. And like that's why I love this conversation right now. But
yeah, that's real, man.
But I just think it's something to think about, and I hope everybody thinks about it too, where it's just like now I get triggered when I'm on the second show on Netflix now. Like I get triggered like if I'm trying to binge watch something. Like there's room for balance and there's room for rest, but at the same time, like most of the time, like are we really maximizing our potential? And like that's what irks me, and that's what pushed me to the podcast, on top of you guys pushing me to do it as well. So I'm hyped about it.
I mean, shoot, Brandon, it's it's cool to see, like, you know, this Chasing Edges podcast come, you know, where it has. Because I remember conversations back in the day, like in the locker room in Houston, you know, yeah, maybe we should do a podcast. You know what I mean? You talk, we should do a podcast, you know, and then you talking about it after, like, you know, when you were kind of started bouncing around and stuff and trying to figure out ball, and then, you know, now to where you are, like, I think that's just a tribute to the conversation here, right? Because how easy would it have been to, you know, like, you're comfortable without the podcast, like,
yeah, no doubt.
You don't need a podcast. You're buying properties. You're lifting at 4 a.m. Like you're good. Like the last thing you need is to be hopping on with me at whatever 9 o'clock in the evening, with having to hop on or get up at 4 a.m. to work out like tomorrow. Shit. I mean, it's uncomfortable. And like, I think you prove your discipline, but like, shit, now you gotta chasing edges, man.
Yeah,
You got chasing edges.
But there's always an edge, and there's always going to be an edge. Like the never arriving concept is really important to me. Obviously that shows up, like, it just, your ego constantly gets checked, and it's like, I think it's like, I get lost in the NFL analogies a lot, but the ability to, like, is my relationship good enough? Like how do I get deeper in this relationship? Like, how do I add more value to these people around me that support me? And it's like, it's a conscious level of like, what are really the edges of my capability, not only as like a performer, but also as like a person, a supporter, a coach, a mentor, whatever it ends up being, a student. Those things just like they're important to me now, and like that fulfills me, but it also keeps me on edge. We'll keep abusing the word edge, but it just I think it's just a cool concept that I hope people do embrace. I know you do. And we've kind of been riffing for an hour now, so I'll start to wrap it up. But you got a lot going on. Where can people find you?
You can find me on IG at b.scar, on Twitter at please be Scarlett. That's please be Scarlett.
Woo.
Yeah, a little play on words there.
Then feed us about Scarlett Creative and the foundation, everything.
Yeah, Scarlett Creative is a creative agency that myself and my co-founder Caroline Hall, we started last year in 2021, basically as a house to help accomplish and achieve all of kind of my creative endeavors, anywhere from clothing lines to working with brands to telling my own story via B-Scar TV or B-Scar Radio, and now looking to kind of expand that offering through other athletes around the different leagues who are looking to tell their story and partner with brands who are aligned in their values and what they in their belief system, and for authentic connections. So that is one thing. That's at scarlettcreative.co. And the Big Yard Foundation is one that I started in 2018, which is, we're almost at our 4-year anniversary. That was began in support of community empowerment, especially in our underserved and underprivileged communities. We work a lot here in Northeast Portland, where I'm from, but also I've expanded into we're expanding into Miami with our Bookworms program. We work a lot in our mission of helping inspire kids to learn how to read, to excite them about reading. So literacy and creativity, physical wellness are all things that that we focus on. And really, for my own background, like this whole kind of what we've just talked about over the past hour, like the only reason that I'm able to think this way, that I'm able to move the way that I'm moving and accomplish the things that I've accomplished, because I've been super fortunate to have like a support system behind me from parents and coaches and teachers and community members, and very aware of the fact that not every kid has that, not every kid has those opportunities and the access, to resources that I had growing up. And so, if the Big Yard Foundation can stand in as and serve as that support system, as that source of inspiration to change some kids' lives, and that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm a massive fan of that, just because one of my go-to lines is like, help and support are not yours to keep. Both of us have been given a lot of support, a lot of mentorship, like all these things. And I think some people choose to hold on to it and not give back. And I think just the flipping the switch for people that you should give back, because like you didn't get to where you are by yourself, I think is really cool. But like, obviously your foundation's awesome. Massive fan and representative of Scarlett Creative. But dude, I appreciate your time, man.
Hell yeah, appreciate you having me on, brother.
Yeah, that's my guy. All right, dude. Appreciate you. I'm gonna pause this real quick.